just to kick things off, I just would like to introduce everybody. So first of all, we have Rebecca Rose, who is a renowned NFT artist. She's also an NFT curator. She just got back from the NFT conference here in New York and is about to head out to Basel for another, to do some more speaking on NFTs. We have Dean from all the way here from Seattle, and he is a photographer and a rights advocate. He's also a board member, NFT expert. And Dean, you're also starting a new business around what, I guess you'll tell us a little bit more about it, about the code, the key codes. What is that? Or maybe I can't talk about that. Oh, you're on mute, Dean.
Yeah, I have learned so much about this cryptocurrency world. I have a new product that helps people keep their keys safe, but we're not going to get into that tonight. So.
Okay. And finally, I'm so excited that we have you here, Chris. Thank you for taking your time out. We have Chris King, the co-founder of Club NFT, to really to bring us home tonight. So we have some serious crypto, NFT, blockchain experts here on our panel today. And we are just going to start off. Dean, I would love if you could just sort of lay some groundwork for us. So if you can kick off our conversation tonight just by sharing a little bit, because I know there's people in the audience that ranging from people that are selling NFTs actively right now, all the way to people that have just literally heard the term for the first time this week, maybe, or you can't even spell NFT. And I'd love for Dean to just start us off just by sharing a little bit about what is it, just what the heck is an NFT? Like, give us some background on this, Dean.
Yeah, thank you so much, Liam, and Chris and Rebecca and everybody. I have really been enjoying learning about this. I was introduced to this just at the beginning of the year, and I've been really diving in and enjoying it and enjoying talking about it. And we talked early about trying to keep this at a level of assuming that the audience doesn't know anything about NFTs, because this can be like drinking from a fire hose, as they say. So I'm going to start at the very beginning. Those terms: an NFT is a non-fungible token. A token represents something, and non-fungible means that it's unique. Okay? So we're talking about a method of authenticating that something is what it is and accounting for its whereabouts, its ownership, and its transfer of ownership. And that's really the fundamental thing. In the art world, and we're going to be talking about NFTs and art, this would be provenance. So I believe that we're talking about art and NFTs right now because artists hone the leading edge of technology. And we have this technology that we're going to be seeing in our lives, and artists are playing with it and figuring it out and doing cool things with it. But we're going to see NFTs. We already see it. Well, we don't see them is the cool thing, actually. Games like Roblox are run with NFTs. When you buy or sell a skin or a tool or something like that, some of these games are already using NFTs, and we don't see it. Luxury goods companies are already using them to track their things, to fight counterfeits, so that you can put a tag on something and verify that it is what it is throughout its life cycle. We are seeing entertainers start to use them for tickets to give added value. If you say go to a concert and your ticket has an NFT attached to it, you might be eligible to buy a song or a special CD. We can see them used as membership, representations of a membership in a club. My interest in these as a photographer came about when I heard about this. I saw it as a great way for licensing images. My background is in licensing photographs. I believe that these can and will be used as a way to authenticate images. They can be used to restrict access to an image, to track the access of who looks at an image, who, they can be used to, of course, to verify the authenticity, so they can be used as proof. Say somebody links to an image of yours, there can be a digital receipt that shows that they either had or did not have permission to link to that. This is all built on blockchain technology, which is cryptocurrency, which allows for very small payments. And I believe that we're going to see photographers be able to use these in the future. So blockchain is the best known example of this is Bitcoin. And a Bitcoin is a fungible token, but the crux of this is that we want to keep track of who owns a coin and who, when it's bought and sold. These ledgers, these blockchain ledgers, they're called, or they're basically a spreadsheet, a global spreadsheet that are public. Anybody can write to it, anybody can read it, and no one can edit it. So you end up with a long chain tracking the ownership throughout the history of a thing, represented by a token. Now, we're going to talk about images and tokens. So these NFTs point to an image and they represent an image, and that image is not stored on this blockchain. So one thing that I think is important that artists keep in mind is that this link from your token to the image can't be broken, or your NFT gets broken. So hopefully we hear about solutions for this in terms of where you store your image. There's an interplanetary file system, the IPFS, and there's a lot of terms that you're going to hear like this. There's other solutions, Arweave and BTFS, but the crux is that your image has to live somewhere for its entire life. And this token is going to be used to verify that that image did not move and did not change.
Dean, could you just define for us really quickly what fungible and what token is? So just so that people are really clear. I know we're getting some questions.
Sure. So a token represents something of value. And I'll come back. But fungible means that two things are virtually identical and can be changed. If I have a $5 bill and you, Liam, have a $5 bill, we can change our $5 bills and no problem. Okay. Now, if I have a Dorothea Lange print and you have Liam print, those are not the same, right? Those are non-fungible. They're both prints, but they're not the same. They're not, we can't just exchange them. In this blockchain world, a Bitcoin is a fungible token. You can trade one for another. One of Rebecca's NFTs represents one of her holograms, and one of my NFTs might represent a photograph. Those are non-fungible. We can't just trade them. Now, they're most likely not going to be on the Bitcoin blockchain. We're going to talk about the Ethereum blockchain. There's a bunch of blockchains, but Ethereum is sort of the king of the NFTs these days. Did that help?
Absolutely, yeah. So keep on going. And if there's anything else, I'll jump in.
Yeah. So a couple of other things that I just want to get across is that there's an idea of decentralization in this, which means that there isn't like a Facebook running everything, or there isn't there's no central authority. This spreadsheet that I mentioned is replicated and stored and on many computers around the world. And that's sort of a fail-safe mechanism, so that if one copy goes down, there are many other copies. But the reason I mention this is that since there's no central authority, we end up paying fees for every transaction we do. And that's not something that we're used to. We're used to like monthly memberships or people making money off us in some other way. But something that you got to realize in this world is that there's a fee for everything. Another thing that we hear about are smart contracts, which is what allows these NFTs to exist on these blockchains in most cases. And they are neither smart nor contracts. They're pieces of code. Somebody called them the egg cream of crypto. And what they are is a bit of code that runs when certain conditions are met. For example, when money has been deposited in an account, then the asset can be released. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because they do not figure anything out for you, and they don't serve as a contract between the buyer and the seller. We as creators are still responsible for copywriting and registering our images and keeping track of when we sold them and the money that we take in and any taxes that we owe on those things. The process of making an NFT is called minting. And when you do that, you still have all your rights, whatever rights you had, and you can give whatever you want. I see more and more expectation of rights to do things like copy or remix images, but really you've got to remember that it's still your image. I think of it a lot like a print, where really all the buyer is getting is the ability to look at it. But with a print, you most likely are going to take it home with you. And with these NFTs representing images, you don't take the image home with you. You might take the token, well, you will take the token that represents that image and keep it in a personal wallet and keep it safe. But that image always has to live somewhere else and in the same place for its life. And that's where I wanted to, I hope that laid a little bit of a groundwork, and that's where I wanted to stop.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dean. Chris, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, so, that really touched on like all the different aspects of what's going on in the NFT kind of ecosystem. I think, at a super duper high level, when somebody says NFT, the easiest way to think about it is they're talking about digital property. So in the same sense that you might own a painting, you might sell that painting, but not actually own copyright to the, art on that painting. An NFT behaves exactly the same way. The blockchain is just kind of tracking ownership, who created it, who owns it now, in a way that can't be changed or hacked against the rules. So yeah, really at a super high level, NFT just means digital property. It's kind of giving us the ability to treat images, artwork, et cetera, that lives in the digital world the same way that we would treat it if it was a physical object.
I know people who are just saying.
That's really great. And I wanted to ask everybody, is there how is this different from other digital properties? What's so special about NFTs?
I'll take a quick crack at this. So digital property is tricky. So you can't prevent somebody from copying an image, right? If they can download the image, then they can copy it and they can email it, right? So in a sense, there's really no such thing as digital property, except in the sense of IP. So if you own the copyright to something, you own the copyright to it. But then you have to find people who are infringing it, so forth. The blockchain and NFTs give you a way to add a sense of ownership of an item as if it was, a physical object without transferring the copyrights. That's something that has been tried in the past with DRM for, music and videos and so forth. But this is something that doesn't need DRM. You don't need to prevent you don't need to prevent people who don't own the NFT from seeing it. Everybody can see it, but only one person owns it in the sense of like owning a painting. So this allows you to give the ability to buy and sell digital objects in that way without resorting to DRM, without resorting to, really trying to enter like a legal contract regarding copyright with people. It's just kind of lowering the barrier for entry. So there have been, a lot of companies that do something similar to NFTs in the past without using NFTs. And they kind of resort effectively to DRM. And this is just a different way to do it.
May I add to that as well? So the exciting thing about NFTs is, at least for artists, this is a chance where artists can set a royalty percentage where if they sell their NFTs on the primary market, they of course would get a larger portion of that revenue minus the platform's commission percentage. But on the secondary market and in perpetuity, any sales that happen will automatically generate a royalty percentage directly to the creator's original wallet address that the NFT was minted into. So yeah, that's another exciting thing about NFTs that we haven't really seen yet in Web 1 or Web 2.
And I'll just say that one feature right there is really responsible for NFTs taking off. That's what got everybody super duper excited about it. And it doesn't even have to be, you can do really advanced things. So like Dean said, smart contracts are neither smart nor contracts. They're effectively just a program that somebody wrote that executes on the blockchain. But that program can do really cool things, like giving the original artist ongoing royalty percentage, but you can do more advanced things. So if it was a collaboration, right, and maybe you were multiple people put together this work, you can make sure that each one of them gets a royalty of whatever percentage you set. It can do pretty advanced things, almost anything that a computer can do, with some restrictions maybe we can get into. You can make these contracts do pretty advanced stuff. So yeah, it as a collaboration tool, as a means of providing artists really just kind of a livable kind of economic situation. This technology alone has lifted out of poverty really fantastic artists in South America and Africa, all over the world, that who otherwise wouldn't have access to traditional art markets, with the big money in the United States and Europe. So yeah.
This is great. So I would love if we could talk a little bit more about really like what this means for artists in general, like specifically for photographers. And Dean started to touch on this a little bit. Like, what does this mean for my images? Like, what is where is it? How long? One of the questions in the chat is like, how long is its life? Like, how long does an NFT exist? And like, if I sell an NFT, can I also sell a print? Do I have? So what does this mean for my art? Like, it's going into the digital world. What's happening?
It's another revenue model for your artwork. Of course, you can still choose to create prints. You can still choose to create originals. However you fit it into your art practice is up to you as the artist. What this does is it creates another revenue model for your practice, which will, ideally sustain you to keep continuing your practice. As far as like where the images are, they're stored, as Dean had mentioned earlier, on the IPFS, the Interplanetary File System. And it's the The nodes, and Chris can correct me on this, it's the nodes that are happening all across the world that have fragments of information that work together to actually produce it.
Yeah, so in terms of like how long is its life, the question in the chat. So the blockchain hopefully is going to live forever. A lot of people have connected to the blockchain, connected their computers to the blockchain, and they're really busy making sure that the blockchain is secure. That's effectively what all these computers are doing. So the token itself, which kind of conveys the right of ownership in a sense, that lives on the blockchain. And that's when you buy or sell an NFT, you are moving that token from your account to someone else's account. The art itself, so the image, the whatever media file, whatever format that you do your work in, I assume they're mostly images for ASMP, that generally does not live on the blockchain. Now, for a lot of money, so storage space on the blockchain is very expensive. So if you're super rich and you're sure that your NFT is going to sell for $1 million, you could actually host the image directly on the blockchain. Most people don't do that because it's really not necessary. So like Dean mentioned, that token includes a little pointer, a link to an image living somewhere else. Most of the time, that's IPFS. Usually people are hosting their media content on IPFS. There are other solutions out there. There's Arweave. I've seen some people pointing their NFT media to just a regular website with an image on it, a website that they own. That's bad for a lot of reasons. That token that lives in the blockchain can't be changed. So once you've created that link, it's kind of permanently there, right? Now, if I point that to a regular website, an image on a regular website, if I own that website, I could just go and delete that image or change that image. So now the guy who bought, my beautiful photograph for $1 million, I could change that to, a photo of my garbage bin. And now he owns an NFT of my garbage bin. So you don't want to do that. IPFS or Arweave are really kind of commonly used in the community, and they're effectively BitTorrent for digital media, to really put it in simple terms. It gets a lot more technical than that. The company that I founded, Club NFT, is really all about fixing some of the rough edges inherent to IPFS. But I would say IPFS is right now the best tool for the community to host their images. When you mint on one of these marketplaces, your NFT, they usually take care of all of that in the background for you. They say, upload your photo, give it a name, give it a description, and click this button. In the background, they're doing all of this magic. You don't really need to worry too much about it until you get a little more serious. If you're an artist or a collector whose kind of livelihood has come to depend on NFTs, there are resources out there. Club NFT is one of them. Rebecca knows a ton about this. Everybody, in the community really helps each other out a lot. See, she's helping me out right now with the Club NFT headband.
I think you're bringing up something, Chris, actually. So first of all, because I'm sure there's so many people on this event tonight that just don't know what Club NFT is. And could you just explain just who you are, just so that they can really get that?
Yeah, sure. I won't go into all the technical details, but a lot of people in the digital art space know Art Gnome is the pseudonym of Jason Bailey. He's my co-founder. He's kind of a collector, curator. He's written a lot of kind of academic-y type articles in the past about art. And about 4 years ago, he realized NFTs are going to be the thing. It's really the way that digital art is going. So we founded Club NFT because really the NFT ecosystem wasn't ready for the huge explosion in popularity that it saw earlier in this year. The buying and selling piece is really easy to do, but for NFT collectors, there's still some rough edges. For example, with IPFS, we think that just providing a set of free tools to help collectors and artists make sure that their work is safe and secure is something that we'd like to do. So that's why we created the company. I don't want to go too much into it, but it was kind of timely. We announced the launch of our company about 2 weeks, and then about 2 weeks ago, and then just last week on Thursday, one big NFT marketplace shut down unexpectedly. There wasn't any problem or error, just the guy who created the marketplace decided to shut it down. And that might be scary for a lot of the people on the call who are like, wow, I wanted to get into NFTs, but what happens if the marketplace shuts down? The TLDR of what happened is we and other members of the community stepped in and brought it back up. And now all of those NFTs, all of the collectors and artists that relied on that marketplace are totally fine. Everything's safe and secure. And that's one of the things that, Club NFT is all about. We're here to just help out the artists and collectors.
This is a great segue, because I think something that we should, I really actually want to get into talking about minting and listing a lot sooner than I was thinking about it, because I'm sure that's really on the forefront of people's minds here about how do I make an NFT? What does minting mean? What does listing mean? What's the cost and all that? But before we do that, you guys are careening into the territory of the community aspect of NFTs. And I think that for someone who's outside of the community, this is something that I think we should really talk about, that people should understand that it's not just when you're really making NFTs and you're in this world, it's not just you out in a field by yourself. Like, there's a real community here. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Rebecca?
Sure. So the NFT community is pretty vast and growing exponentially by the day. So the best community that I have seen is lives in Twitter because it's easy to share links to minted works. It's easy to make comments. Instagram is great for visuals, but the link functionality just is not there. So if you're interested in NFTs, definitely start creating your own community and getting involved with NFT communities on Twitter. There's, oh my gosh, so many communities in Asia and Africa and Europe. I mean, during NFT NYC, NFT London was happening as well. And that was a community-led effort that they pieced together in about 2 weeks' time. So there are a lot of passionate people within these NFT communities. And a lot of them have, open arms and will welcome you in there. They can answer questions. They can guide you to, best practices, safekeeping, security, to make sure that you don't get hacked. There's a lot of linked arms, so to speak, like we protect each other. So definitely get involved in the NFT communities on Twitter, as well as a lot of the Twitter spaces, because then you can actually hear the audio from people who have that experience talking about, things that are changing, because things do change very rapidly in the space. So it's important to, if you have the time to dedicate towards it, it's important to always kind of be on the forefront of the changes that are happening, smart contracts that get updated, different versions of smart contracts on different platforms, because that does happen. Yeah, so definitely embed yourself into as many communities as you can.
I would just add on to that, once you do find, say, a particular community that you're really interested in, a lot of them also run their own Discords where they really focus the talk. They have different channels to discuss what's going on. So, just one shout out, Vertical Crypto Art is a really great community focused on artists. I know Rebecca's in there all the time. And they have, even kind of almost a workshop kind of feel where it's like, oh, we have these speakers to talk about this topic just to teach people stuff, So once you find some people that you kind of trust and that you like what they're talking about, usually you're going to find they're associated with some Discord group somewhere. For those who don't know, Discord is just like a chat program, effectively.
Yeah, I just want to say that the community aspect of NFTs seems to be the key to successfully selling NFTs. And people who have a community of followers on on some sort of social media can seem to be able to be the ones who can bring that over and be commercially successful selling NFTs of their work. And building a community from scratch around your NFTs is going to be as hard as it sounds. So people who are already engaged with people are the ones who are doing well. And you see famous celebrities who can step right in and sell whatever it is they want to sell, as they can do with just about any product.
Yeah,
And
sorry, good.
Discord is the absolute best named social media. It is so difficult to wrap your head around, but there's a lot there, and it's just a new tool that we have to learn.
While we're on the
Oh, sorry, go
Discord subject, it's crucial that as you enter different apps or things that you haven't yet utilized, like tools you haven't yet utilized, it's important to understand the risks associated, because there are, and I don't say this to scare anyone off, but to be very truthful about the matter. Communities do exist in Discord, and it's important to be on there as well. Please do not ever give out any sensitive information whatsoever to anybody. Even if you feel like you've connected with them on a very deep level, do not give them, try to safeguard your information as closely to your heart as you can, because there have been some Discord communities that have seen scams rampant through there. So, and this is something that Discord needs to help work out on their end. So the NFTs that exist there are, like I said, we're linking arms, we're protecting each other, we're making each other aware of any sort of scams or hacks that have happened or are happening. So please just know that ahead of time whenever you're introducing a new tool into your social media practice or your art practice, to do your own research ahead of time and to know the risks so you can safeguard your information.
And just to put like a concrete point on it, so the kind of information that you're really going to want to protect is all the usual stuff. Don't give anybody your home address, your social security or credit card. What NFTs kind of add on to that. So there's the concept of your wallet. It's some kind of magical blockchain address. So there's an address, and that's public, but there's a private key or a security passphrase, which is like 12 words, right? Those two pieces of information are your super secret, keys to the kingdom. That's what you never give out to anybody. When you get into this, you'll end up installing a wallet application in your browser or on your phone. And when you go to a website, it might, ask you, hey, do you want to make this transaction or whatever? That's, something that you'll learn as you go through. Sometimes you just want to be careful where you're browsing and so forth. But one of the nice things about the blockchain is nobody can do anything without your either secret key or your permission. Now, if they ask for your permission to do something, but they're not really clear about what they're asking for, then they might get your permission to do something you don't want them to do. So that's kind of the way to think about it. In terms of the community aspect, and Dean really hit on this, super important. A lot of people think, okay, well, the NFT space is exploding. I'm going to go, create an NFT and sell it. And from zero to selling an NFT is almost impossible unless you have, 10 million people following you and, asking, what are you doing today, right? Most of us don't have that. So becoming a part of the community before you're trying to sell into the community is really important. The community is very, open arms, everybody's welcome. They're very helpful. And I would just suggest, engage with it a little bit, get to know some of the people, talk with them, tweet to people, whatever, but engage with the community a little bit. And also, you might start talking with people in the community and be like, you know what, I don't like these people, and decide not to do NFTs in the first place, So the best way to start with this whole thing is get involved and then figure out whether you want to actually start, selling your work on the blockchain.
Yeah, that selling the work touches on what Rebecca said about another revenue stream. And think about, if you license images to magazines and you want to sell prints at fairs, that's a lot of work, right? I mean, that's a whole new business model. And that's what you're getting into with NFTs, most likely. So there's a lot of work to it. I also want to touch on that security and caution. You know, there's a lot of money being made really fast in this world, and it's easy to think that you can tap right into that. And there's going to be a lot of, you get on some of these chat groups or apps, and there's going to be a lot of offers that sound too good to be true, and just about every one of them is. So caution. And talk to people. You know, people will share information freely.
I think what I'm hearing is, first of all, look both ways before you cross the road. And second of all, I think you need to remember that you need to bring some cultural humility to this. And I think a lot of times in the digital space, people don't really understand that. It's almost like if you heard that everybody in Missouri was selling a lot of prints. So then all of a sudden you just drove to Missouri and then opened up the trunk of your car and was like, here's some photographs, here's some photographs. Like, you have to imagine people would be like, who's this guy? Why is he on the side of the street trying to sell photographs of New York and in Missouri? But I think because it's a digital space, we don't think of it that way. We think, oh, I'll just make an NFT. And that's what I thought. I was like, oh, I'll just go online. But it's really, yeah, it's a community.
And one more point is that, you know, a lot of the people on this call already have people who are very happy to collect their work, I'm sure. A lot of these photographers have kind of an installed base of collectors, and you're probably wondering, so if I start offering NFTs, those same people are going to be the ones who go buy them. The actual pool of NFT collectors is probably only a few 100,000 people, and they probably don't include anybody currently buying your work. They're just, you know, it's too small. There's a lot of money in it, but it's a totally different audience. So you can't just go into the NFT space assuming that the same people are going to be buying your stuff. There's, you know, just a different pool of people. So it'll be important to figure out, you know, what do the people who are collecting NFTs like? And, you know, do I produce anything that they would be interested in?
That's really great. Let's take a minute, and I'm sure there's going to be tons of questions at the end about how to get into the community and what type of things people like. But I would like to sort of talk a little bit about selling and the marketplaces. But I think first we should probably talk a little bit about minting and listing, just so that we can let people know what that is and maybe how they do it. I would say that let's not spend this this panel like teaching everybody how to mint and list an NFT right now, but I think pointing people in the right direction would be really great. I'm sure there's tons of folks on this call that would love to just get pointed in the right direction for how to do that.
Yeah, so as an artist who's minted across multiple platforms, please first ask yourself, how much are you able to spend from the get-go? Because as Dean had mentioned earlier, pretty much every action that happens on the blockchain does require a transaction fee, or what is called gas in the NFT space, especially if you're working with Ethereum. Gas can be very high at times, it can be lower, it fluctuates. So if you can go to an Etherscan gas tracker, it gives you up-to-date real-time information, and you can see when GWEI, GWEI, is either high or low. When it's low, that's more affordable for you to mint. So when you decide to start minting, if you're going to do it on Ethereum, know that you have to first buy cryptocurrency from a crypto exchange and then transfer that cryptocurrency to a wallet that will connect to whichever platform you choose to mint on. And even that transfer will cost a small gas fee. So always keep in mind, whenever you're interacting with the blockchain, there's going to be a transaction fee. That's unfortunately right now how Ethereum works. Hopefully when layer 2 gets rolled out, all those fees will go down a little bit. But there's also other chains like Tezos that is more affordable as well as Polygon Matic. You can also mint on that blockchain. There are different platforms and marketplaces that connect with different types of blockchains. So it just depends on how much you're willing to financially invest upfront to help you decide which routes you want to take. Now, that doesn't mean that you only can choose one and that's it. You can choose, if you want to choose as many blockchains as you'd like, by all means. This is the great thing about how Web3 and decentralization works, is that you as the creator can make these choices for yourself. So if you want to mint on Solana, if you want to mint on Tezos, if you want to mint on Ethereum, that's up to you, with different transaction fees per action. So if we're talking about Ethereum, there are two different types of tokens. There's an ERC 721 and an ERC 1155. Different marketplaces create different tokens. So let's say, for example, you've heard of OpenSea. OpenSea is one of the largest marketplaces out there right now. They operate primarily on Ethereum. They do have some cross-chain operability, such as with Polygon Matic. I believe they're going to be introducing Tezos in the future.
Hey, Rebecca, so if you could, we have a ton of laymen on this. So Polygon, Matic, Tezos, these are all just, people might, are you describing wrappers? Like, I think there's a lot of people that have no idea what you're saying. So,
I'm so sorry.
If you could give it just a little bit more context, that would be so great.
Sure. So the Polygon Matic is a coin, a cryptocurrency. Tezos is another type of cryptocurrency. Ethereum is another type of cryptocurrency. They all have their own blockchains that they, blockchain ecosystem, so to speak. Just like how Bitcoin does. So
if I can just get this clear for the folks who just really don't know about this. So what you're saying is that there's a bunch of different marketplaces. An example of one of those is OpenSea. And on that market, in the OpenSea marketplace, you said you can only use Ethereum on that. Is that correct?
Actually, you can use Ethereum. You can also mint with Polygon Matic, but keep in mind you would have to purchase Polygon Matic in the crypto exchange and then transfer it over in order to initiate those first transactions.
Can I step in real quick? So for the vast majority of the people on this call, really your journey into this is going to be choosing a marketplace and using the defaults. So if you choose OpenSea, the default is going to be Ethereum. So you don't really need to care that it's on Ethereum. What you need to care about is the default is going to have high fees, right? They have an option where you could do it on a different blockchain, which means it'll be lower fees. Nothing is going to be free in this space. So probably anything you want to do, like Rebecca said, is going to cost you money. So there's a cost, benefit analysis here. So some marketplaces, they're going to be expensive to do things on, but they're very big, very popular. And, you're going to get your art in front of more collectors. There are smaller, communities that are more active. So if you're not trying to sell your work for $1 million, but you'd be happy selling it for $100 or $1,000, you might find that some of the replacements of, Hic et Nunc, which was a marketplace on Tezos, maybe those are, objkt.com, maybe that's a good marketplace for you. So from a beginner's perspective, you might want to just start learning about what some of the marketplaces are and some of the factors that go into that decision. So price, size of the audience, is it a curated market? So for example, some of the folks on this call are probably famous. People know about their art, and there are marketplaces that are a little more exclusive. Not anybody can just, create work there, because you end up with a lot of garbage. 99% of the NFTs there are garbage, and 1% are the diamonds, right? So some of these are curated platforms where you have to kind of prove, hey, I really am Rebecca Rose, world famous artist. Here's the art that I want to pin here. Once you prove that to them, they'll create an account for you. So learn a little bit about, what the options are. And then a lot of these, like, what blockchain is it? Is it a side chain? Is it a layer 2 technology? Those kinds of things are decided for you largely by the marketplace and the options you choose. Some people are asking what kind of transaction fees are typical. if you're going to do something on like base Ethereum, which is kind of the default on OpenSea, for example, you could be talking tens to many tens of dollars for you know, a single transaction, even just like moving money from one place to another. Different kinds of things that you do are going to cost more or less money because they're more complicated. So if I just wanted to move some Ethereum cryptocurrency from one place to another, that's going to be much cheaper than minting an NFT, which is a much more complicated operation. Sorry, go ahead.
I would add to that as a layman, as a super beginner in this, the first NFT that I minted was on Rarible, because that was the first thing that I could figure out. and I did it just like you said, Chris, all the defaults straight up and down the line. I think it cost me about $150 all in, with transferring from wallets and the minting fees and stuff. And then then I did one or two on OpenSea, because I figured that out too. So there is absolutely, like both of you are saying, there's a there's a learning curve here, everybody. Again, it's not just like opening up your trunk and selling prints out of the back of your car. You've got to, you know, you have to onboard yourself. And I will say, to speak to everything that you have all said in this conversation, the community is so supportive and so helpful. I would have never been able to figure out how to do what I did if it wasn't for just random people that I just reached out to online. I was so surprised. These random people just told me everything. Oh no, go here, click this. Don't worry about that. Just set it to the defaults. Like, and these are just random people I just met online. Everyone was so helpful and so welcoming.
And I know for some people, like when they say, oh my gosh, it costs $150 to mint a work, like that's out of my price range, you can choose a marketplace that does what's called lazy minting. Some of the more open marketplaces like OpenSea, Rarible just announced lazy minting as well, which is actually where you pretty much just pay like one upfront cost, and then you mint as many works as you choose. And then, you know, once the work gets sold, then that's when it's actually minted and then transferred to the collector's wallet. So that's a more cost-effective way to approach it if you want to kind of just ease into it. Some of the more curated platforms, like Chris was talking about, like Foundation, they do have different fees. Like there's a separate fee to list, there's a separate fee to mint, and then the NFT actually gets moved to the Foundation escrow wallet. So when that NFT is sold, then you have to pay a third time to settle that transaction in the escrow wallet. So yes, do lots of research, because if you enter into a marketplace and are kind of sideswiped by all of these extra fees that you hadn't planned on, you know, that could put a dent in your budget.
Yep. Oh, and one thing we didn't cover, the very first step to doing any of this, which Rebecca did mention, is you need to obtain some cryptocurrency, right? You can't do these transactions with your credit card usually. So how do you do that? You know, Rebecca mentioned you'd want to like buy these on some kind of place. So, you know, there's Binance and what's the Coinbase and other places where you can just attach your bank account, you buy some cryptocurrency, and once you own that cryptocurrency, you can transfer that out, like Rebecca said, into a wallet, which you're then using for all of your minting stuff. So in terms of like what cryptocurrency should you buy, that is kind of decided by what marketplace you've decided to use, right? So if you've decided to use OpenSea, you probably want to buy Ethereum. You can buy cryptocurrency on all of these other chains. So Tezos, there are side chains like Polygon, Matic. There are a lot of options here. So step one is probably, you know, choose a marketplace that you are comfortable with, that you like the reviews, you've heard good stuff about. Step two is open an account, buy some cryptocurrency.
And Dean, you were going to add something?
Yeah, I want to take a whack at this section. So this is a little bit like going to an amusement park or a foreign country. And we've been talking about the blockchain, and there are many blockchains almost all the money, the big money is happening on Ethereum, okay? But like Chris said, so Ethereum is the name of the blockchain. There's another blockchain called Tezos. There's another blockchain called Cardano. On Ethereum, you spend Ethereum. On Tezos, you spend Tezos. On Cardano, you spend ADA, actually. But the point is that there's a native currency that you do things in. And so you kind of go into the world of Ethereum, and then you want to go to a specific amusement park, which is the marketplace. And you set up an account there, okay? And that's the way I think we can think about this. And at some point, you change your dollars for Ethereum. If you want to go to Tezos, I would recommend you change your Tezos or your dollars to Tezos. You can change Ethereum to Tezos, but that's much more complicated. The fees always have to get paid. We talked about lazy minting. That's basically deferring the fee. You have the buyer pay the fee, but the fee always has to get paid because there's a record that gets made on whatever blockchain you're using, and there has to be a fee paid for that. So somebody needs to pay for that. And that's what I got to say on that.
Dean, where did you, you're a relatively newer artist like myself. Where did you first mint your first NFT?
So I first minted my NFT on Wax, which is a blockchain made for NFTs. And it's very cheap. And I made a set of trading cards. I just wanted to learn about this. So I made a dozen cards based on my dog, and it's a set, and I minted these on the Wax blockchain. And I'm gonna diverge a little bit. I had this idea that, so they're small, and I had this idea that I would mint the originals on the Ethereum blockchain. And Rebecca talked about different types of NFTs. So there's one that makes sort of a semi-fungible token, like my, so my card, I don't know if I should get into this, but a trading card, let's say you've got 100 copies of each card. Those aren't really non-fungible tokens because each one of those 100 is identical to the other. So like if I have card A and 100 copies of card A, each of those is tradable with each other. They're nearly identical. That's sort of semi-fungible. And I wanted to take the original and mint that on a different blockchain, on the Ethereum blockchain, and have that be a one-of-a-kind, twice as big as the ones on Wax. But that's really frowned upon because this whole idea of the NFTs is even if you've got these different blockchains, there should only be one original and it should be pointed to by one token. And that's really what's going to make it non-fungible and unique.
So earlier, someone was asking about, you know, if I already say sell print editions, I want to sell 100 prints of the photograph that I took, you know, can I also sell an NFT of that image? You can sell any NFT you want. You can sell the same NFT 50 times. But you will, you know, the community is going to realize that this is a person who said, hey, this is a unique thing, and then they created a copy of it, and you will not be rewarded for that. So, you know, in terms of you could mint the same NFT on a bunch of chains. You could mint the same NFT 50 times on one chain. You should be really upfront, right in the description of the NFT with like, hey, here's an NFT, I'm selling it. I only plan to ever sell this one NFT. I also have already sold 100 prints of this image. You know, just be clear about what you're doing so that the buyer knows what you're doing. And if you kind of go against what you said you're going to be doing, then, you know, there may be no future buyers for more NFTs.
And some marketplaces offer the option to create limited editions of your NFTs, akin to like how you would make physical limited edition prints. And to Dean's point, like it might be the same image but the transaction hash is different, very much like how the number of the edition written at the base of a printed work would be different as well. So it's the same image, but a different transaction hash or limited number on it. So some artists go that route. Sometimes, they'll do, maybe like 1 of 100 or 1 of 5. That's the artist's decision. But as Chris said, it's crucial that you remain very clear with your communication to your community and to your collector base. That way they're not buying one thing thinking that it's a unique NFT 1 of 1 on Ethereum blockchain, and then go to like a Tezos platform and find the same exact image.
And just one addendum. So if you really are interested in, minting an edition of 50 or 100, right? You can just go to the platform, mint it once and say, this is an edition of 100. And that 100 is tracked on the blockchain. And it's provable that there's only 100. You can't go later and add an extra 100. So if you do it that route, you don't really need to communicate anything special. Usually people do say this is an edition of 100 or whatever, but it's all tracked in the blockchain. And what I was really warning you against is kind of intentionally going out and making one thing that claims to be a 1 of 1 and then later creating another one. Don't mint multiple times the same work unless you really clarify up front that that's your plan.
The same, and for everybody, and by the way, guys, our community knows this. If you work in the fine art world in photography, it's the same exact thing. You can't do an edition of 5, sell them all, and then be like, actually, it's an edition of 10. You just, well, you can, but you lose collectors and you lose gallery interest. One of the biggest in the quote unquote, in the real world, that's one of the biggest ways to lose any credibility in the gallery world is if you start doing things like that. So same rules apply in the digital world as in real life. I think that's actually a really good place to transition. So why don't we transition to talking about sales? So you've now minted and listed, and again, Club NFT is a great resource. And also that Dean is we're gonna drop in the chat a whole bunch of resources that Dean has put together for getting yourself started in the NFT world. So we'll drop that in the chat at some point, and please jump out and remind me if that doesn't get done. So now now we've minted and we've listed our NFT, and how does sales work? Primary and secondary sales, like let's talk a little bit more about that. And maybe also we could talk a little bit more about security and enforcement off the chain as well. Like what if something happens? So we could sort of dive into those. And if anybody has questions on this topic, just throw them in the chat and we'll see if we can work them in.
So as you're preparing to mint, depending on the platform that you're minting on, it can give you different options. Some might have a buy it now price. Some might have a timed auction. Some platforms actually accept offers, like if you put it at a buy it now price, and then you can also accept offers. Let's say somebody doesn't want to pay a full ETH, but they'll pay half an ETH, and that's okay with you. So there are different ways to go about your sales strategy, depending on what works best for your practice. Please be careful that if you do have it listed in one cryptocurrency, that if an offer is made, make sure that it's a cryptocurrency that's equivalent, because sometimes people will make an offer in a USDC coin at a much lower price than what the Ethereum amount is worth. So pay attention to the little icons next to the numbers and do the conversions to see if that's a good fit for you.
And one quick note, for example, one cryptocurrency Ethereum unit is worth about $4,000 US. So, you know, if you see somebody's offering you 1 Ethereum, that's a very different amount of money than somebody offering you, you know, 1 USD. So yeah, be careful to check, you know, what it is. There are a lot of websites out there that you can just check, like, what's the current price of this, you know, cryptocurrency. It's really easy.
And
Also, a lot of marketplaces boil it down to you and make the, you know, they do the translation to USD for you. So they can show you, hey, somebody's offering you 1 Ethereum, which is effectively, you know, $4,000.
And also keep in mind the volatility of the cryptocurrency itself, because if you, let's say that you typically sell your work for $2,000 USD, and you want to convert that to Ethereum. So let's say that your sales strategy is to sell it for 0.5 Ethereum, for rounding it up sake, which is closer to, you know, what you would normally sell at 2,000. But if Ethereum drops in value, let's say that it went from today's current price to, let's say it dropped to 3,000 USD for a coin. That then means that 0.5 Ethereum price that you have set with your NFT is now worth $1,500. So keep that in mind when you're figuring out how to price your work, because that volatility does happen within the coins themselves.
So Rebecca and Chris, you guys are more familiar with the Ethereum marketplaces than I am. And you talked about commissions. What do you call it?
Royalties.
Royalties. So what happens if I mint something on one marketplace, say OpenSea, and I want to go sell it on Foundation? Is my royalty honored?
May I take this one?
Yes, please, go ahead.
So it's possible to do it the other way around, but not from OpenSea to Foundation. So like if a work is minted on Foundation and then it goes to the Foundation's escrow wallet until it's sold, and then when it's sold, it goes to the collector's wallet. Yes, that collector then can put it on the secondary market on OpenSea and sell it like that. So with a lot of the ERC 721 tokens, they do, like, the primary sales do tend to happen on the platform that it's minted on, and then secondary happens typically on OpenSea, unless you relist that NFT on the original platform it was minted on. So like, say for example, I sold a piece on Foundation to a collector. That collector wanted to sell it on secondary within the Foundation ecosystem, staying on the Foundation platform. That's a way to do it as well. Currently, right now, with royalties crossing platforms, OpenSea is working on ensuring that those royalties do carry over, because over the summer, some of the royalties were not carrying over between platforms.
Yeah, they've been working really hard on solving that, and I believe that most recent count, they were able to give out $500,000 of owed royalties that happened like kind of on other markets. So they're, you know, making a really strong effort. In principle, the smart contract or a smart contract could enforce the royalties. Doesn't matter where it's being bought or sold. You could buy it or sell it, not even on a marketplace. You could, like, you know, open up your computer and start hacking away and do the transfer for cryptocurrency, and the exchange will happen. The reason that there are these kind of incompatibilities is because these marketplaces generally have smart contracts that are built really for their own marketplace. It's kind of a closed ecosystem. So that's why, for example, you can go from Foundation to OpenSea, but you can't go from OpenSea to Foundation, right? They're kind of incompatibilities that the marketplaces almost intentionally built into it, but it's not a big deal, because usually you're going to choose a marketplace and you're choosing that because you see there's an active secondary market on that marketplace.
But
I want to add here. Oh, go ahead, Dean.
There's nothing enforcing that the buyer of your work to sell it on that marketplace, though.
No, but it doesn't matter where they sell it. All that matters is if they sell it, if they are able to make that sale, then the royalty is enforced. The problem is, for example, Foundation, you can't make the sale for something that was minted on OpenSea, because Foundation doesn't want, you know, they're kind of a closed ecosystem. They're curated. They don't want people like buying and selling OpenSea stuff. They only want people buying and selling Foundation stuff. But any way that you are able to execute that sale, the royalties kick in. There are, you know, people who figured out some ways around that. It's really uncommon, and they're kind of, there are efforts to mitigate some of that, but it has basically zero impact on the net royalties that are being realized by artists today.
And it's my understanding that part of why NFTs have taken off so hardcore, and this is sort of at the core of it, which is that no matter where you move it, no matter where it goes or who sells, it's all tracked on the blockchain, and it all goes back to that one unique token, which was and still is revolutionary in the digital world. Because up until NFTs, nothing in the digital world was sailing, what do you call it? It wasn't
Ownable.
Yes, and everything was, as you'd say, fungible. A GIF, a JPEG, you send your images out in there, and they're just, and you couldn't. But when then NFTs came along, and now all of a sudden, just like the art that's hanging behind me, if that's on the wall, there's only one of them. It's hanging on the wall. It's right there. I can show it to you. And the only way you can get it is if you come over to my house and you pull it down off that wall. And now an NFT is, and all of these things that you're talking about, the way the royalties are tracked historically, all the way back to the moment it was minted, it's the same exact thing as an actual real life existing thing. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you know, it's not just that NFTs have kind of given people the ability to buy and sell art the same way they used to do with, you know, physical art, but they've even added this royalty thing, which realistically is impossible to enforce in the physical art space, you know? So you might have a contract that says, I'm selling this to you, but if you sell it again, you have to give me a cut, but then you have to, you know, hire a detective to watch that guy for the rest of his life to see if he sells it again. At least here, you know, there's one thing, it's just automatically enforced. So I would say that not only have we gone, you know, up to equality with physical art in terms of what you can do, but well beyond it.
I just want to say, I'm not convinced that those are enforceable. I think that they're fragile, those contracts for the royalties. I think that there are ways for people to buy and sell and avoid the royalties. And it's something that I personally, and it's not really a selling point for me. I think it's great. I think it's cool. And I just don't think it's real durable.
So I used to be a real skeptic, actually, about the royalties. In fact, if you check my Instagram somewhere, one of the first talks that I gave, I was like, yeah, smart contracts are neither smart nor contracts. You shouldn't rely on them. Like, people are excited about royalties, but there are ways to get around them. I thought about it a lot more, and the only way that you can get around the royalties built into the smart contract is really by not using the smart contract. Now, how can you make a sale that doesn't happen on the blockchain? And there's really only a couple ways to do it. And it requires that you trust the other guy who's buying from you. So part of what the blockchain does is it allows you to buy and sell fully confidently. I'm going to send you this art and you're going to send me this money at the same time. And it's, you know, if one doesn't happen, then the other one doesn't happen. If you want to get around the smart contract, first of all, you know, you're kind of a shady person and you're probably dealing with a shady person, and you ironically need to trust that other shady person. So if you say, hey, I'm going to send you this art and you send me money separately outside of this transaction, you really better hope that they're actually going to send you the money. As far as like the risk to all of this, I'm sure that there are, you know, black market swaps of art happening in the physical world and in the blockchain, but you know, criminals don't tend to trust criminals. And I think the people engaging in that, it's a pretty limited group of people. I personally, you know of one person who tried to do something similar, and the guy just kept millions of dollars in cryptocurrency, which he kind of deserved. So, you know, it's, I'm less worried about it. If you buy into the fact that the whole point of the blockchain is it's provable, you don't need to trust anybody because it's all enforced on the blockchain, and that's the value that the blockchain brings to this, then sure, you can do other stuff outside of the blockchain, but you can't trust it. So that's my 2 cents.
Right. Like for the artists that are listening, if a collector reaches out to you and says, I'm interested in this NFT, but can you transfer it to my wallet? And then I'll transfer you X amount of cryptocurrency. Like, you're really opening yourselves up for risk. So those smart contracts are built there for a reason. So you don't have to trust people.
Yep.
So I want to ask you guys, so if the in the audience, is it I'm wondering if there's any burning questions out there that or topics that you really want to see us cover that we haven't delved into, and then I'd also love to hear about really, like, why don't we do some Q&A, and then let's wrap up on the next level, like where you all see this going into the future. So I'd love to do some Q&A. And if you want to type out your question, and or if you use your digital hand, you can, which is right next to in the reactions button on the bottom bar of Zoom, you can do all kinds of reactions, and one of them is raise hand. So just raise your digital hand, because we've got a lot of folks on the chat on the thing today, and I will call on you and ask you to unmute. So Kat, I can see you've got your hand.
Can I speak up? Somebody actually has asked this question a few times on the chat, and I'll just give it a crack. So they're wondering, how does the volatility of the value of the cryptocurrency affect the perceived value of the art? So early on, there was a direct connection between, you know, if the price of Bitcoin was going up, then the price of my art was going to go up. It would, you know, sell for much more, and vice versa, which is weird because there's actually really no connection between cryptocurrency and NFTs. Any kind of connection between that is just perceived value. So people see cryptocurrencies going up, they think, oh, I'll spend more for this art. That connection has been breaking down lately because NFTs have really become their own thing. People understand they have value. The value is not in any way related to the value of the cryptocurrency. So you may see, you know, if the cryptocurrencies are going up, you may see, you know, art sales going up. You may see counter reactions these days where, you know, if the price of the cryptocurrency is going up, it's more expensive for people to pay for the transaction to buy the art, so they may wait until the cryptocurrency value is going down. So it's a really complex interaction. It used to be much simpler for no good reason, but today, you know, the art market goes up and down, the cryptocurrency market goes up and down, and the relation is too complex to care about.
That's super interesting. I guess the only thing, Chris, would be if, like, in the event that Ethereum dropped from $4,000 to like $3, if you bought a $4,000 piece of an NFT, then you'd be in trouble. But the likely
well, no. So if you spent $1 million on an NFT and the cryptocurrency price drops to, you know, $0, nobody's forcing you to sell that NFT. You can hold on to it. You know, you can always sell it again later for 1 million ETH. To get back your $1 million. Again, I think the art has its own value. Now, Rebecca mentioned you really need to be careful. If you're going to put something up for sale and you're going to list a price, make sure that you have a good sense for what that price means in US dollars. But if you're just holding a piece of art, you can price it anytime you want. You can reprice it if you put it up for sale. All of that stuff, like, I think the art has value, and I'm less worried about the cryptocurrencies.
And changing the price for your NFTs is an action on the blockchain. So that would cost another transaction fee, just a heads up.
Yep.
So
okay.
Yeah, go into it ahead of time, have a strategy, have a pricing strategy, think about what works for you, and, you know, stick to it.
Yep. I would say if you are listing something for sale and it's up for a month and you haven't sold it, like take it down and rethink your strategy. You don't typically put a work up for a long time. In fact, sometimes, you know, the best way to get a sale is not to list it for sale and wait for an interested collector to reach out to you personally and say, hey, how much do you want for this?
Mm. Okay, we're gonna have, let's hear from Kat. So Kat has a question. Hello, Kat.
Hiya. So my question is, are there guidelines for setting a royalty percentage? I know OpenSea has a max of 10%, but I don't know how to back calculate what's reasonable for me since I'm just starting out.
Yes, actually. So OpenSea does have a 10% royalty, as does Foundation, Known Origin, and Super Rare. I'm not quite sure what Rareables is, but that is the max. For OpenSea, like a lot of artists generally do, like 10% is standard. For some of the artists that do like 10,000 generative art projects, their royalty percentage might be lower. They might choose, 5% as a royalty fee to help, to help bolster that secondary market trading for their project. But most one-of-one artists tend to stick with that 10%.
Brilliant.
And I would just
Thank you
add
so
out
much.
that, sorry, just really quick, I'd add on to that, a strategy that people who are going to be, there are things called drops in this community. And it means like, hey, I'm going to be listing for sale a whole series of works, maybe with a common theme that haven't been for sale before. They're kind of brand new to the community. And, if you're getting a lot of attention and publicity for that and expecting there to be a big secondary market, sometimes what people will do is they will list it for a relatively low primary sale price, expecting to, create a secondary market and be earning revenues from the secondary sales. So, it depends kind of like the size of the drop or the popularity of your work or so forth. 10, like Rebecca mentioned, is really, really standard. So nobody's, I think, going to fault you if, as starting out, that's just what you said.
Thank you, Chris. Alejandro.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was wondering if model releases apply the same way with NFTs as they do in the commercial or for non-commercial use or commercial use. Any word or words of advice on that?
So I'll step in. For what it's worth, my background before NFTs was working in legal tech. I spent 6 years working in the legal department at Google. So the laws haven't changed. If you're taking a photograph of a person and you're selling that photograph, you probably need a model release depending on the state that you live in. If you sell a person a print of a photograph, you're not transferring them copyright unless you explicitly transfer them the copyright. All of the laws remain the same. Okay. Now, the tricky part is that NFTs have taken off and become really popular with people who don't know about the laws very much. And a lot of people are just assuming like, oh, I bought this NFT, so I must have the right to make a t-shirt with that on it, right? You don't actually have that right. People, artists who maybe never were into photography decided to start taking photographs and selling them as NFTs, maybe didn't realize they have to do model releases. But yeah, the laws are still in effect. They're starting to catch up a little bit, but all the same rules apply. So
that leads me to a second question. I've seen some NFTs that seem to be part of the appropriationist movement. And where they photocopy an image and then they sell it as their own as an NFT. And I'm just like, where's the line there?
Yeah.
Copy minting. So yeah, that is a thing that does happen, which is why it's absolutely crucial to make sure that you're minting works before you put them on Instagram, or mint works before you tweet them out. So that way there's an attestation of that work being on the blockchain with a timestamp associated to your wallet address as the owner. But yes, copy minting does happen. But since everything is public on the blockchain, it's a public ledger, it's very easy to track the provenance of that work to find out out who the original creator was.
So,
Third
and
question.
just touching on that really quick and combining that with a question by Phyllis in the chat. So the creator of the NFT is recorded publicly. Now, if somebody takes your photograph and creates an NFT from it, all you have to say is, that's not me. Here's who I am. I'm this, address on the blockchain, not that guy. Then they're not going to be able to sell that NFT for any money because it's known that it's, just a copy effectively. So it's really important. One of the built-in things with the blockchain is that we know who is doing what. So if you decide to get into this and say, hey, I'm this, everyone's going to know whether it was you that created the artwork. If I went and photocopied a Van Gogh and tried to sell it, even if it was a perfect copy, if it was atom for atom copy of that artwork, people are going to ask, where'd you get it? And I say, oh, I made a copy. Nobody wants to buy that Van Gogh from me because he didn't make it.
Understood. Thank you.
Tomas, I think it's very important.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dean. Hi, Dean.
Hey, Tomas. I think it's very important to maintain your habits of registering copyrights.
Yeah.
It's critical. This doesn't help you get around any of that. And in fact, you put something on a marketplace and it's published, and all of a sudden you've got a different, a different problem of how to enforce that copyright. So
right.
None of this makes your business easier, really.
So a third question, if I may. I would like to panel.
Wait, Alejandro, I want to add something right before you go on to another question. And so for all of our members out there, there is I don't have the link for this, but Tom Madry did a legal clinic on this topic with regards to NFTs. And as a member of ASMP, you know that you always have at your disposal the ASMP legal clinics, where you can bring these types of questions and get them answered by actual legal professionals that deal with copyright stuff. And just like Dean said, it's not the Wild West, it's still Earth. Copyright still applies.
Okay.
And Stuart, if you don't mind, if Alejandro asks another question, we'd love to hear it, Alejandro.
In your experience, I'd like to ask this of all the panel members, in your experience, which is the best marketplace for photography? I've looked at a lot of these and they seem to be hit and miss in the amount of photography, and it just and then you have to dig deep for it on a lot of the searches if they have a search capability at all.
If I could jump in on this one, it depends on the artist and the body of work. Justin Aversano is a photographer with his Twin Flames collection, and that's primarily on OpenSea as a marketplace, and it has transacted hundreds of ETH, and if 1 ETH is 4,000, you can do the math. There is also a lot of photography on Foundation, and the Carpoolers project on Foundation was a drop of about 50 different photographic works, and it sold out within 10 minutes. So it really, photography is everywhere. There has been a great welcoming and embracing of photography within the NFT community. I want to say since June and July is when it really started to explode. Maker's Place, Victoria West on Maker's Place, she's a photographer and she does very well there. So yeah, I mean, photography definitely has a stronghold in the NFT communities.
And Foundation,
Yeah, and there's
a created site, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's no quick answer to which is the best for photographers. Like Rebecca said, there's so many factors that go into it. I would suggest try to do your own research and find something that makes sense for you, or find somebody that you trust and ask them someone you trust who actually knows your specific circumstance and can give you some good advice.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank anybody else. No.
Yeah, my take is that with photography, a lot of it comes down to your following already. There are some big name photographers that Walter Yost comes to mind, who's had good sales because they have a lot of name recognition. As far as a marketplace that does a good job with photography, I'd say Calumet on the Tezos blockchain. has probably the broadest base of photographers and collectors of photographers.
I'll also plug one platform that is small and kind of just starting out, but I met the guys and they're fantastic. Immutable Image. They're really targeting exclusively a photographer-based platform.
Okay. Well, thank you guys, especially for all this wonderful information. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Alejandro. And we have a question from Stuart. Stuart, come on down.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Sorry, I'm not used to this. I posted my question on the chat in general. I can just read it. Can any of you discuss your success in selling the NFTs in general? In any way you can share? Like, I hear that even teenagers are making millions, and I just want a realistic, real world examples of what regular photographers or successful photographers like you can reasonably expect.
Yeah, my part will be the fastest. I haven't sold a single NFT because I don't make or sell NFTs.
Oh, and Rebecca?
Sure, I'll jump in. When you hear about these stories where teenagers are making millions, it's true, but it depends on which type of approach they have towards the NFT market, because there are a lot of NFT traders out there who will mint those 10,000 generative art projects, hoping that they increase in value. It's very speculative, it's highly volatile. Some projects don't work out and some projects go to the moon. So there are ways where people are making substantial amounts of money with NFT trading. When we're talking about artists and their success with NFTs, it is a smaller piece of that pie. Like the majority of sales happening in NFTs are a lot of those, like with that trader mentality, you know? And for artists, unfortunately, it just means that you have to work harder to kind of make a name for yourself, make a bigger splash in order to get the attention of those collectors and even more importantly, those serious collectors that will invest and buy your work and then not inflate the value of it unnaturally, which could in turn hurt your how do I say this? In turn, it could create like a false market. You don't want collectors to do that either. So in terms of like real numbers from NFT artists making money and not focusing on the NFT traders, I know of many artists who were able to devote their entire 9 to 5, just went away, and now they devote all their time towards making NFTs and being successful selling them. So, but they put in the work. It's still a 9 to 5. It's just you're not going to a company, you become your own company. So you have to think of it in that respect. It's not as easy as I minted something, somebody's gonna see it and want to buy it. It's just like creating anything. You have to tell your story to a large amount of people. You have to engage with the community. You have to connect with people on a human level and not just a speculative investor level. But yes.
I would add that a big part of the value behind these works, some of the more valuable ones, isn't just the NFT itself, it's the story around it. So if you have, if this particular series has a lot of meaning to you, there's a story as to why you made it. Here's how I made it. This is my, first foray into NFTs. That doesn't even have to be on the blockchain or anything. That could be on your website, kind of explaining what this means to you and so forth. So the story around things, to the degree you can kind of craft that, some of the story is out of your control. Obviously, it's kind of up to the market, but the parts that you can control contribute really to the value there.
I want to add something on this topic, and this is about, we live in a very, very sensational environment. And most of the time when, my mom calls me and says, did you hear about this NFT thing? What she reads in Newsday, and I love my mom, But the type of news that reaches us from communities that we are not a part of is most likely just the most sensational stuff. So we have to remember,
Right.
just like being a photographer, just like being a sculptor, just like being a movie actor, you know, there's 1% of people that make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. And there's 90% of people that make absolutely nothing. And then there's another 10% that, you know, get by, that live, that buy a house, that raise kids, that don't, that have a second job. The whole world of it is in there. So I want to remind people, although we hear these sensational news stories, the other thing that I would invite people to do, and I don't know if this will discourage you or maybe inspire you, depending on where you come from, is, you know, if you see a sensational story in the news about NFTs or some kind of success of some artist, you should look into it. If you take a look at Beeple, who sold the NFT art in Christie's, you really actually look into the history of that artist, how long he's been working, on that project. It's been years and years and years that he has gone into his career that culminated with him selling an NFT at Christie's. And I think that a lot of times, because of the way the news cycles are in this country and the way that people gossip and things are on social media, we get a disproportionate view of about how things actually go down and how things actually work. So I do want to add that in. And I don't know if that gives you hope or it discourages you, or it leaves you somewhere in the middle where most of us wind up.
And if I could add to that, yeah, just like Beeple, another artist to really keep your eye on is in terms of like how they were able to build their body of work, their brand, their story, their community, is Fewocious. And Fewocious is actually a teenager who is making millions as a fine artist, not doing the speculative NFT trading, like actually making millions and selling works at Sotheby's and Christie's for very big hammer prices, because there's the energy there, there's the story there that Chris was talking about. So definitely, as Liam had suggested, like look at some of the successful artists that are making a dent in it, and kind of like figure out, you know, how to follow that as a blueprint, but make that blueprint your own. You don't want it to be so formulaic that you lose yourself.
And I'll just point out that, you know, a lot of, you know, the photographers on this call, they have a career, they have a reputation. It is whatever they've built over the years. You know, I think that a lot of people will be surprised to see that they are able to, with some work, with working with the community, they're able to get into this and not, you know, sell a $69 million single work, but, you know, add a good revenue stream that has, you know, a meaningful impact on their lives. I don't think, you know, everyone's going to be billionaires here, but I do think that, you know, this is technology, like I mentioned, like there are relatively previously unknown artists all around the world who are able to finally, you know, pay their bills and groceries and buy houses. And, you know, I'm not saying that's even that level is going to, you know, be what you see, but, you know, I don't think anyone would turn down another revenue stream, frankly.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if someone can reasonably expect, say, a modest 5 or 6 figure income with some hard work, that it's realistic, then, you know, it's doable, right? So I just want kind of another question is, if you're an established artist that have been working for decades, do you see any success in marketing those existing images as opposed to creating new images specifically for the NFT that, I don't know, they tend to be more like a lot of Photoshop and graphic kind of manipulations as opposed to just straight classic photographic images?
So good.
I was just going to say, your art is how you make it. So there are artists that will mint works based off of existing works. There are artists that will take existing works and manipulate it. There are artists that will, you know, add animation or some sort of digital element. If it's, you know, not a natively digital piece, that really is up to you as the artist. You have the power to make that decision.
And speaking as a guy with zero experience actually doing this, you know, I have seen that, you know, once you kind of pick a path of this is the kind of stuff that this is the kind of art I'm going to be releasing as a NFT artist. Like if that is, I'm just reselling, flat, existing art just as it was, that can be your path. If it's like, I'm going to update my work for kind of this new medium in some way, maybe that's your path. I think that, if it's a particularly, well-known body of work that, would be able to fetch, a pretty reasonable price elsewhere if you were to sell it, then there's probably a lot of value even in just the straight up, hey, I've decided to mint this stuff as NFTs. On the other hand, you might find some value in adding to it, like Rebecca was saying.
I'm going to ask some, I'm going to answer a couple of questions that came through in the chat really quickly. And then we're going to bounce to Ryan and then Kelsey. Am I saying your name right, Kelsey?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Kyle asked a while ago, what about video content? Can you make NFTs out of video content?
Totally. Yep.
Go for it, Kyle. And Tom Donnelly was asking about sizing. Is there some kind of a standard size for an NFT when one makes one?
I think I remember seeing that question. He was actually asking, would it be okay to mint multiple NFTs with the image just at different sizes? Was that the question he was asking?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so that might be seen as just re-releasing the same NFT multiple times, and it might be frowned upon. On the other hand, if you say up front, hey, I'm releasing a high quality version, a medium quality version, and a low quality version of this, and you're clear for each of those NFTs that that's what you're doing, then that's kind of interesting. Maybe somebody like can't afford the high quality version and might want to buy the low quality version. That's kind of an interesting spin on it. As far as if there's any standard size, every marketplace kind of has its own, like, hey, your files can't be larger than this in terms of like megabytes, or, the marketplace is going to say, look, we want your thumbnail to be this many pixels, and we want the full size image to be, no larger than this many pixels. So that's kind of on a marketplace to marketplace, thing. They will scale down your image if it's larger. There's no limit. There's no inherent limit to the size of the content that you could potentially post, but the marketplace may adjust that.
And something to think about is how you expect people to look at your image, how you expect them to see it. And I think aspect ratio is probably more important than size. If you deliver something of high enough quality resolution that it can be downsized, that's great. But think about how you want people to look at it. There are people looking at these on their phones. There are people who may want them on the screen on their refrigerator. People are selling frames, digital frames to display these things. And there are some specifically designed for video that will just loop a video. So I think about how you expect it to be seen there. I think that the idea of selling different size images of the same image is going to run into resistance. That's what I ran into. Yeah. If you can spin a story, you might be able to do it, but there's resistance because people figure they can just up and down scale the images.
I would also add one thing. So you are probably going to pick a marketplace on which you mint your work, but just going to Dean's point about think about the presentation. There's nothing stopping you from also, adding a section to your website where it's like, here's where you can view this NFT in your preferred perfect way. Maybe you want to put the text over here and the image over here, and you want music playing in the background, like whatever crazy thing you want to do to display your NFT, you can display it. Anybody can make a website to display that NFT. You can, here's the central, like this is the official way to view this NFT if you want. Just keep in mind that when people are like browsing the marketplace and choosing the work to purchase, that aspect ratio is going to matter because that's where your work is going to show up.
That's really cool. That's a really cool idea. We're going to get, Donya has an amazing question that we are going to get to. Dean, do you see? I knew we were going to get there. But first, Ryan and Kelsey, I want to see if we can get to everybody's question before we leave tonight. So Ryan, why don't you start us off? Your hand is up first, or at least I see you first. So I'm sorry if I'm stepping over you, Kelsey.
Yeah, sure. It was more of a comment on something that you all had mentioned earlier, and thanks for having me to share my opinion about this. But having been really heavily involved with NFTs, I feel that we have this ability that it's like people were discussing, like, how can NFTs be artwork? And I think it's more about, like, how can the NFT technology kind of rewrite how we think what artwork is. We're kind of at this turning point right now where the technology that's behind NFTs is enabling creative people now to extend the narrative that they usually have within their physical or digital artwork. And this tech, from my perspective, and probably I get a feeling that other people here as well think the same thing, this tech is the conduit between the two worlds. And what it's doing is it's giving us the ability to now bridge that narrative so that it exists in both the physical and the digital space.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm really most intrigued these days with some fully on-chain NFTs. They're NFTs that don't point to anything, and it's just using code, 16 kilobytes of code to create imagery. And I think that we're going to see a lot more innovation as new blockchains kind of develop.
Very cool. Thank you so much for adding that, Ryan.
Thank you.
Kelsey.
Hello. I don't have a question, just a comment about something that somebody said earlier. And I create NFTs, and I use photography as a medium of expression and an illustration. So I'm a photographer, but I use an iPhone. So most of my photographs are from an iPhone, and I collage them together. My themes are flower themes. And I also use photographs of myself taken from boyfriends from long ago that I've obtained rights to use now. So I have the rights to these photographs, and I collage them with the flowers. So if that answers any questions about, you know, archival images and what to use and what's appropriate, there you have it.
Great. Thank you, Kelsey. Drop a link to your work in the chat. I'm sure people would love to see it.
Thank you.
I would love to jump into Donia's question. When we were preparing for this talk, I believe it was Dean said, you know, we really do need to talk about the environmental aspect of this and the impact. So Donia, for anyone who can't see the chat, is asking, this might be taboo. It's not, and thank you for bringing it up. Thing to bring up, but what's the response when people bring up the environmental impact of NFTs? What are some ways that artists or platforms can do to counteract these concerns? What are some things that we can do as a community? So let me start off by asking, what's the community already doing? Actually, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, so there are a lot of different well, I wouldn't go so far as to call them 501c3s, but there are different organizations that do what's called carbon offsetting, and they'll actually take the they can calculate how much energy was used in order to create that transaction hash or to have that action happen on the blockchain, and then convert that into you know, how much it would cost in fiat or USD dollars in order to create a carbon offset of that by either donating it to an actual 501c3 or you know, where they can plant trees to, you know, actually take action to, you know, offset that. So that's one of the ways that people are doing it. Another way is some artists are moving away from sturdier chains like Ethereum right now. And truth be told, like Ethereum itself, like they're working on a layer 2, which when that gets rolled out, it will be a cleaner chain. But some artists opt to use cleaner chains like Tezos or cleaner chains like Polygon Matic or Solana, just because it's lower volume, so there's going to naturally be less energy used there.
Just a quick piece of context. So, the amount of electricity used to, say, buy or sell NFT on Tezos is equivalent to turning on a 60-watt light bulb for about 5 seconds. Electricity used to, say, mint an NFT just on base Ethereum is equivalent to running a average, middle income US house for several days. So there's a big difference in your choice of chains. Like Rebecca mentioned, Ethereum is working on a change that'll bring it back down to the light bulb for 5 seconds kind of level, which is, by the way, equivalent to sending a single tweet on Twitter, right? The same amount of electricity. If you're concerned about today not making any kind of impact, look at proof of stake blockchains like Tezos, I believe Solana, lots of other ones. A lot of the layer 2 solutions for Ethereum, Polygon Matic, that's all a totally different system, much cheaper energy wise. A lot of people are also working to power the blockchains themselves with green energy. So using solar power exclusively to run their Ethereum, nodes, for example, to make sure that even if we're using a lot of electricity, at least it's green electricity. And beyond just, planting trees and trying to do like different kind of volunteer initiatives that are raising money to try to offset the carbon. There are also a lot of volunteer initiatives raising money to solve the technology problems that created this environmental impact. So Green NFTs project, which by the way was founded also by Jason, my co-founder. He's really into doing anything to kind of push the blockchain and NFTs forward. The Green NFTs initiative is, they raised a bunch of money to find teams and run competitions to see who has, a tool or a project that might be able to reduce the ecological impact. I would say that, if you are on Ethereum, base Ethereum today, it's not great. It's not your fault. The blockchain kind of is what it is. And I wouldn't worry too much. It won't be too long, maybe a year or two before those environmental impacts are brought way down. I would say, if you compare the environmental impact of selling an NFT on, say, Tezos, say 50, an edition of 50, compare that to actually printing it out and shipping it, by airmail to China or wherever your, buyers are, you're actually saving the environment, depending on how you do these things.
And I think also one of you told me that we also need to consider, with regards to the environmental impact, that given that the blockchain, cryptos, and NFTs are some of the most relatively new technology that exists on the planet Earth in the history of planet Earth, it's actually poised more so than many other sectors to make a green transition, as opposed to, yeah.
So for example, I mentioned, the Ethereum blockchain is going to be moving to this much more efficient framework. The beautiful thing is all the companies that are being built on top of Ethereum, all the artists that are starting to, become their own brands and selling their own works on Ethereum for free, they all magically get upgraded. It's not like you as an artist are going to have to go and like hack on your computer to get yourself green. It will just happen for you. So think of it as like an automatic upgrade that comes along on your Windows update, except this one won't crash your computer and it makes you green.
So I have the answer that may be the taboo answer here. And I'm going to just talk about this for a minute because it is very important to me. And I'm in Seattle, and it was the #1 question that I had from members about this. Are we going to talk about the environmental impacts? So Yeah, it's a new technology. You look at history of technology, early technologies are dirtier than later technologies, right? I mean, early cars, two-stroke engines, whatever, they're a mess. We improve that. There's a direct relationship between these gas fees in Ethereum and Bitcoin to the amount of energy you're burning, because you're paying somebody to run computers to make the transactions. So just a little background, there's no central authority. There's no like bank that is handling the transactions of the money, right? So there are people in this decentralized system called miners who compete for the ability to write to the blockchain. I said anybody can do it. That's not exactly true. You have to be connected. You have to have a certain computers. And the way Ethereum proves that somebody has the ability to write to the blockchain is really by proving that they burned energy. And they have to prove that they did the work in order to make that record.
This is Dean. When people say, "What is it?" This is proof of stake versus proof of work. Is that what you're?
So that's right. This is proof of work. In Ethereum and Bitcoin, you have to prove that you can do work, and you do that by burning electricity. And that's called a consensus mechanism. The whole network says yes. Liam burned $300 worth of electricity, and we all agree on that. There are other ways to reach consensus, and the most promising looking way is proof of stake, where people basically they put up a stake of money that's more than they could possibly steal by cheating the system. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. And so that's the most promising way that we're going forward. And those blockchains like Tezos, Solana, Cardano, they're hundreds of thousands of times more efficient than Ethereum.
And so Ethereum will be moving to proof of stake, was my point.
Yes. So in the meantime, there are mitigation efforts, these carbon offset efforts. Now, here's my taboo answer, is artists can lead. And there's a lot of argument that, well, we've got to be on Ethereum because that's where the money is. But if you've got things that people want, I say, go where you want to be. And if you're good enough, people will follow you. And I'm not saying I'm good enough, but I am saying that I don't work on Ethereum. And I'm on other blockchains. And I think that's kind of incumbent on us to lead.
I would add to that. So I fully agree with that. I'm a huge fan of the Tezos blockchain. Hicket Nunk, which is gone now, but there are replacements, was my favorite marketplace personally, just on a personal level. Tezos is, again, hundreds of thousands of times better for the environment. I would say if that is your attitude, and again, it is mine, you should also consider, so layer 2s that are built on top of Ethereum, they kind of hide the problem. They don't actually solve it. So any other solution which is on top of Ethereum still requires Ethereum to exist. And right now, Ethereum existing means a lot of electricity being burned. So anything that depends on Ethereum existing means that you're still kind of like going along with the environmental impact that Ethereum is creating. Ethereum is not the only blockchain that's proof of work, but it's definitely the most popular for NFTs. So yeah, if this is a concern and you are more focused on the environmental impact today, the fact that it will be fixed in the future doesn't give you license to ignore the problem that exists today, then definitely consider an alternative blockchain.
And with proof of work, like they're not just burning electricity just to burn it. Like there are so many computers that are actually computing very complex mathematical problems in order for that transaction hash to get onto the blockchain. So that's where the energy consumption is coming from, because all of these machines and computers need power to compute these very extremely complex problems.
The main issue with the proof of work is that the complex problems they're solving, nobody actually needs them to be solved. They're just solving them to prove that they did the work, why it's called a proof of work. So it is a complex problem, but it's not helping anybody. Now, if, you know, the proof of work was find a cure for cancer, and when you find that cure, then, you know, you get to mint the next blockchain, that would be a useful use for your computer, right? Right now, it's like, hey, solve this complex problem. And if you are the first person to solve it, we reward you and you get to mint the next blockchain. So, you know, proof of work is what it is. The whole point about proof of stake is a little bit of history. NFTs would not exist if it weren't for crypto, not because crypto has anything to do with NFTs, but because the blockchain is a great idea, but it only became popular because people were like, oh my God, let's overthrow the Fed. Let's, you know, create our own currency, you know, down with the system. If they didn't all dive in on that idea, then nobody would care if you were minting art on a blockchain, because nobody would care what a blockchain is. Same with proof of stake. Proof of stake, where you're saying, hey, I promise that I will throw away all of this cryptocurrency if I try to cheat the system. Nobody would care if you threw that away if a proof of work didn't come along first and say, hey, guess what? We've decided cryptocurrencies actually have value. You know, the whole reason this works is because at some point somebody decided this, you know, stuff has value. So unfortunately, proof of work kind of had to come first, but it's not the end of the solution. I think, you know, proof of stake is really where we're going to be heading.
That is so great. And I think we are going to have to leave it right there. It's 9 o'clock on the East Coast. I just want to thank everybody for joining us on this, for this amazing conversation. I have so many more questions and so many more things that we could delve. I feel like we could talk about proof of stake and proof of work for another 17 hours. So if you all have enjoyed this programming and you'd love to see ASMP put on some more programming with regards to NFTs, if you'd love to see Rebecca and Chris come back, send a message to Dean or myself. And thank you all for joining us. And thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Dean, for joining me tonight on this panel. I learned a tremendous amount, and I really appreciate you giving back to your community and giving back to our community with your time and your knowledge. So thank you so much for being here.